G'day and welcome back to RC Model Reviews. Today a review that has been much requested by people over many months, and it is the Radiolink AT9. It's a 2.4 gigahertz RC system. It comes in this lovely box, but we don't do unboxings here, so there it is. Look at that. Now let's take a closer look at this radio. Here you go. Now this one is in mode 1 because I fly mode 1, so there you go, throttle on the right. Certainly it seems to be a nice, reasonably nice looking radio as far as radios go these days. It's got a 2.4 gig antenna on the top. You can see it there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 switches. So that's 1, that's a 3 position, that's a 2 position, that's a 2 position, that's a 3, that's a 2, that's a 3, that's a momentary contact for trainer or throttle kill, whatever. So there you go. Yep, that seems all very nice and good. It has a couple of twirly knobs up here. There's no center detent on these, so you can't feel when they're in the center position. That's a bit of a minus, but maybe there's a beep on the software when it gets to the middle position. I don't know. We'll check that out and find out. The sticks themselves are, yeah. Remember, when I review this, I have to bear in mind, this is actually a pretty low cost radio. I think $99 or something. It's a pretty budget radio. It's not a Tyrannus. It's not a Futaba MZ18 or anything like that. It is a low-cost Chinese radio designed for a certain market. Now, the thing has an LCD display. It's a color display. Let's turn it on. Swing, bing, bing, bing. There you go. Look at that. I'll just tighten up on that so you can have a better look. There you go. As I said, it's color. As you can see, it is reflective. If I turn it around, you can see the reflections of my bench mat on there. It's actually quite shiny, and that's a bit disappointing because I'm pretty sure when we take this out into the sun, it's just going to wash right out. That's the downside of color LCDs. I mean, they make it nice and easy to set up your model inside when you've got just ambient room lighting, but once you go out in the sun, you cannot see a damn thing in most cases. But I could be wrong. I guess we'll find out. I'll just pull out a bit because I'll show you what the controls are on the front panel here. Whoop, there we go. We've got 2 buttons. This one is labelled mode. This one is labelled exit. And over here we've got a rotary spinny roundy twirly thing with a button in the middle. So it's a bit like Futaba. And all around the navigation seems pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go into depth as to what the menu options do, but suffice to say it's got most of the functions you want in a computerized radio these days. There are expo dual rate mixing, and I think it's got a few setups for elevons and things like that. So yeah, you're not going to be missing out on anything with this radio. Now, one of the things I didn't like was it comes with one of those. Let me just go down here and you can see what I'm talking about. One of these horrible dry cell battery holders. They're the devil's own work because it only takes a slight bit of oxide for the contacts to be intermittent, and fortunately it comes with a JST connector. So what I've done is I've used a good old tired but still perfectly serviceable 1400 milliamp lipo, and I've put a JST connector on there and use that, which is great. So, repower it with a lipo. You can change the settings for the battery alarm, so it doesn't matter whether you're using a 2-cell or a 3-cell. You can set the alarms to work accordingly. One thing I did notice, which isn't very good, is that I've put a 3-cell in here, and oh no, it's all right. I was thinking that the battery voltage alarm was a bit low, but no, this one's nearly flat. It's 11.4 volts, so it's nearly down the bottom. So that's okay. I think there's not much else to do except perhaps now we'll take it outside and see what this display looks like in the sun, because that is really, as I say, the killer weakness of color LCDs. I'll just walk out of the door here and you can see fail. The sunlight just completely obliterates the combination of the shiny screen and the pretty poor contrast. It's not a transflective screen, so it doesn't reflect light, only relies on the backlight. You just cannot see a thing on this. If you get really close, you can see, but it's just, it's a fail. I would much rather have a regular transflective monochrome LCD screen than a color screen any day of the week, and that's for sure. So yeah, nothing unexpected. And now that it's turned on, let's just see if these make a noise around the center position. No, they don't. They don't make a noise. Now, I forgot to mention it does have sliders on the back, but I'm not a great fan of sliders here on the back because if you use this as a tray radio, and some people do, they like to have it as a tray, put it down, let me just pull down a bit here so you can see what I'm talking about. You can get your fingers under there, I suppose, but it's just not a natural thing. And these are actually quite harsh. The ratchet is very hard on these. Difficult to make smooth, progressive movements but it does have a nice center detent. And this one here, it's a bit lighter. And this one has a beep on the center. This one doesn't. Don't know why that is. Anyway, perhaps it's in the setup. Who knows? So yep, that's the transmitter. Now it's time to start doing some techie stuff. Let's see how well the 2.4 gig RF system is made. Right, let's take a look at how this thing's using the spectrum. You can see there's a couple of peaks appearing there, typical of the distributed spread spectrum peaks. It's kind of a wider at the base than at the top. These are the two center frequencies on which this thing's transmitting. It's kind of like DSM2. It's using up a fair percentage of the bandwidth. It's DSSS, that's distributed spread spectrum use, and it's operating in two separate parts of the band. Now, this is going to be okay for most applications, but I wouldn't want to use this in something where you had a hell of a lot of noise, a lot of Wi-Fi or something else, maybe some 2.4 gig video systems running, because, I mean, look at the really way to determine how well a system is working is look how much of the band isn't used. It's not so much how much is used, but how much isn't used. All this space here is space that this system cannot take advantage of. It can only use these two little bits. So you've got 85 megahertz of bandwidth and you're ignoring most of it. So yeah, as I say, it will work fine. DSSS is pretty resistant to interference of some kinds, but not other kinds. Given my choice, I would go for a frequency hopping system, not a DSSS, but this is only a $99 radio. Having said that, Hobby King sell one for $55, which is frequency hopping, and it has a better quality display, but it doesn't have some of the other features that the Radiolink offers. So this is really going to be horses for courses. You've got to decide what features are important to you. But when it comes to use of the band, I'd give this 3 out of 10. Now, the Radiolink system does have telemetry on offer, but it's not up to par with what you'd expect these days on certainly on a top-end radio. You don't get voice telemetry as far as I can see. And if you want to do something useful, like monitor the voltage of your LiPo, you're going to have to buy a $20 hub, a $20 sensor that is as big as the receiver itself. I haven't shown you the receivers yet because I have it inside a machine, a miniquad, and I'll have to take it out to do that later in a second video because there are several receivers to choose from. But basically, it's not like the Free Sky where you can buy a $2 circuit board and hook it across your LiPo and get your receiver voltage drop back to your transmitter. It's not going to work that way. Sorry, I mean your LiPo voltage drop back to your transmitter. It's not going to work that way. You're up for another $20 per model for that voltage sensor, and you've doubled the size of the space needed inside the model, so it's not really suitable for miniquads, certainly the 180 size. You just will not be able to cram it in. It's unfortunate. I mean, I find this because all the radios I've looked at are pretty much the same. The Futaba, it also requires you to have a spendy extra bit of kit to monitor your battery voltage, and so does the, what is the other one, the Graupner. A lot of these radios, and Spectrum, I think also you're going to have extra spendy bits to monitor voltage. I mean, this should be fundamental. In the day of electric models, you should be able to just plug something into your LiPo balance port and plug it into your receiver and have the correct voltage sent back to your transmitter without spending a fortune or without creating huge amounts of extra bulk and weight on your model. And this is what it looks like with the back off. As you can see, there's one large circuit board here. Smaller daughter board up here which has the 2.4 goodness in it. Let's take a closer look at some of the key things in respect to the quality of construction. Okay, the soldering on those switches is okay. It's a bit how you go, and there's a few spikes in the solder there, which means the flux has burnt off. They've taken too long, or they've used poor quality solder to solder those wires on. Let's look at the other side. And again, you can see spiky solder indicative of not a good soldering job. Someone took too long, or the solder didn't have enough flux in it. And there's also no support for those wires. There's no heat shrink on them. There's not even any glue or hot snot, although I did notice some hot snot over here on the stick units. You'll notice a little bit of glue in here holding those wires, supporting the wires on that stick unit. But on the other stick unit, where are we, if I can get it into shot, because I'm working manually here. Let's move this around. Yeah, you'll notice on this one, let me just focus because I'm in manual at the moment, trying to get it to pop properly. Come on, there we go. You can see there's no either insulation, there's no insulation, and there is no support, no relief on those wires there, which is really not very good. Same goes for these ones up here. There's no relief, no support on those wires. That's not such a good look. But all in all, considering it's a $99 radio, I've seen a lot worse for a lot more money. So yeah, I mean, I would actually shore up these wires because they will break in the fullness of time if you don't. Wires where you solder them to a lug like that, even vibration, just transporting it around in your car, there's always a risk that because there's no support here, these wires will fracture. Another thing I noticed is that although there's plenty of switches, they're not all of the best quality. As you can see, there's a lot of sideways slop in that switch. And they feel okay, but I don't know how many cycles they'll last, and I'd be a bit worried about that kind of thing there. This one's well, no, see, that's got a bit of slop in it. Never mind. Yeah, remember, it's a $99 radio. So is this a good radio? Well, yeah, for 99 bucks, I don't think you'd be too upset with it. As I say, pros and cons: the screen's crap in the sunlight. It's only DSSS, like the old DSM2 system. These switches are okay, but I don't know how long they'll last. The sliders on the back, no, it's a personal preference. I'm not that keen on them. The upsides, it does have telemetry, but it's going to cost you money to use that telemetry. You don't get a telemetry ready system out of the box. You've got to buy that little adapter for 20 bucks or so, which will give you the ability to monitor your lipo. It doesn't have voice response, which, I mean, if you look at the Turnigy 9XR, what is it, the 9XR Pro, that gives you voice telemetry, and it's, you know, 65 bucks or something, 75 bucks, and it has a better LCD in the sunlight. So it just depends. What I do believe is that you can reflash the software in these, much the same as the Walkera DaVinci, with new software that handles other protocols. That could be a really good feature if that's the sort of thing that you find useful. Yeah, I say you won't kick yourself if you buy it. Unless you need the special features or you want the fancy color screen and stuff, there's probably a bit of value on the market out there. It's really a personal choice. It's not a bad radio. It may not be the best radio for you. Maybe it is. I don't know. I've just told you what I can in this quick review. If you've got questions, comments, put them in the usual place. I will do my best to answer them. And if there's anything specific you want to see, I will try and show it to you. Now, this is going to be used in the, it was sent in by FoxtechFPV. I didn't have to pay for this, so thank them. And it's going to be used with this Screamer mini quad here, which they also sent in. This has got the matching receiver in. In fact, the receiver in there is quite big, which is another downside. But there you go. I will be giving a follow-up review once I've flown the Screamer. I'll let you know if there was any problems with the radio and what I think of it actually in use. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.